Now, when we talk about hindgut fermenters, this is going to be my horse. Okay, so all my horse lovers out there. Horses are unique, and so there is going to be a horse digestion video on our playlist this week. Go take a look at it. And horses are complicated. So if you've ever owned one, you know this to be true. They have an impressive and extensive digestive system is the best way to put that. Now, here's what's kind of crazy. These guys still only have one stomach. And so they are considered what we call a non-ruminant herbivore. They only have one stomach. But the reason that we do not classify them as monogastrics is because of this hindgut. So you'll notice we have a small intestine, a very large cecum, and then you've got a very large intestine. So you've got a large intestine that breaks down into a large colon and a small colon. And this specialized hindgut, that's why they're called hindgut fermenters. We would actually call ruminants foregut fermenters, meaning that they digest feed before the true stomach. And you'll notice on horses, they digest the feed after the true stomach. And so this specialized cecum and large intestine is actually what we see digest fiber. So in the ruminant, that would have been the rumen. But in horses, it's the cecum that actually has the microbe population. But there's a problem with that. Even though that cecum can digest fiber and we see microbial populations present, it's not happening until after the stomach. And it's not happening until after the small intestine. And what we know of digestion is that all of primary sites of digestion and absorption occur in the stomach and the small intestine. And so this causes a problem. So we actually have to feed these animals a little bit differently than we would cow and sheep and goats because they are not efficient digesters at all. So we cannot get away with feeding low quality feeds. They have to have very high quality feeds. We cannot have anything with mold on it. Whereas you can feed cow and sheep and goat pretty much anything. They're really good. The bugs in their rumen take care of it. You don't have to worry about them getting sick. They're just not as complicated. Horses, if you feed them anything that's low quality, anything that's dangerous of any kind, the animal gets sick. And then we have to be also very careful on their feeding management. So things about like where do we feed them at? Okay, what types? How often? Because more often than not, horses are in some type of non-traditional setup. So they're in a stall, they're not out on pasture like cattle, they're not getting fed regularly throughout the day like dairy cattle. Excuse me. And so the feeding management is just has to be a lot more closely managed in horses. And then also we can see lots of other complications. And so you'll see horses do things like colic, they'll get twisted guts, they'll get backed up. There's just a lot more that can go wrong in this system because of how long and complicated it is. And so we have to be very, very careful about it. Now, when we look at their digestive system, you'll notice up till here, they almost look like a monogastric animal. And then kind of here, I could still argue monogastric animal. And then this is where we see the big difference. So cecum and then my really large intestine. And so this is where we're actually seeing microbial digestion. And so sometimes you'll actually see horses picking at their own feces or some other animal's feces, and that's because they actually have a lot of protein in that leftover poop product, because all of those microbes are dying and have all this really nutrient dense protein, but none of it's getting absorbed by the, well, I shouldn't say none. Very little of it is getting absorbed by the body, and it's actually getting pooped out. And so sometimes you'll see, we call it cacrophagy, and you'll see rabbits and horses both doing that because of the way their digestive system is built. And this is kind of what I talk about with that impressive system. You'll notice this is a very tall instructor, and this is what we're talking about with their intestine set. So you're looking at the cecum, and then my large and small colon here. Now, when we compare ruminants and hindgut fermenters, okay, some of the first things I want you to pay attention to is that a ruminant is a foregut fermenter, and a horse is a hindgut fermenter. So first big difference. This would be a horse. This would be cows, sheep, and goats. Okay, you'll notice one stomach, one compartment. Very large 4-compartment stomach. Okay. They actually have an even longer small intestine than a ruminant, and kind of a small, not very well developed cecum in ruminants. Very large developed cecum in hindgut fermenters, and very, very large intestine. Okay, compared to each other. So some differences that we're going to see, okay, is species, where microbial digestion is happening. And microbial digestion, right, is that process of fermenting feeds, okay, to help break down the fiber. And then we're going to see some differences in the intestine sizes as well. Okay, and this is just kind of a quick overview of some differences between the species we've talked about. So monogastrics on this side, ruminant, hindgut fermenter. Okay, just making sure you feel comfortable with all of that anatomy and that you can explain the differences between the different species of animals on a quiz in the future.